justice for all.
Did you get the application, please, Mr. Wood?
Yes.
We are indeed grateful to you, our Creator, for the privilege of this experience that we call life. We're grateful to you for the health and strength that you endowed to each of us. We're grateful to you for our community, for the privilege to live and work here. We do invite your divine wisdom and guidance and direction in all that we do and say. And as we acknowledge to you our faults and failures and ask for your forgiveness, we pray that you would remind and challenge us always to forgive each other. And we ask this in Christ's name. Amen. Amen.
Susan, do you have the actual proclamation on this Arbor Day? I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight. Certainly, we appreciate you being here. The first item that we have, thought someone might be here, but I would like to read a proclamation regarding Arbor Day. Our Tree City Commission has been very active in that effort, and we appreciate that. And I'm sure they will have a day in which they'll be selling trees again out in the Canton Park, Central Park. So pay attention, and when that happens, make sure that you go by and see them. Buy some plants and trees. All right, whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas city trees add the soft touch of nature to our busy lives. They cool our cities, fight pollution, conserve energy, give wildlife a home, and make our neighborhoods more livable. Whereas the trees on city property along streets and in parks are an essential part of the urban forest. To keep these trees healthy and abundant, our city organized a program for their care. We have an annual action plan to plant and prune the city's trees and to maintain their health. And whereas trees are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, and whereas the city of Canton has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation and desires to continue its tree planting ways. Now therefore be it resolved, I, Gene Hopgood, Mayor of Canton, do hereby proclaim Friday, February the 15th as Arbor Day in the city of Canton, and urge all citizens to make a difference by planting and caring for trees in your yard and in your neighborhood, and by supporting your city government's community forestry program. I guess this is about the fourth state of the city that I have given. And of course, every one is quite unique, as you can imagine. You know, 2012 was not our finest year either, okay? There were, however, several positive highlights, I think, for the year. We continued to reduce our debt, which is very important to me in 2012. Since I was elected mayor, this reduction, we have reduced our debt from around $70 million in total debt to about $48 million. A tremendous accomplishment. In 1929, when our economic conditions were only slightly worse than today, Calvin Coolidge said that public debt is a burden on all the public. It remains that today, and perhaps the greatest gift any council could give its citizens is a debt-free city. After almost 2 years of work, the Charter Study Committee presented its recommendations to the council this spring. And the council responded by unanimously approving the charter improvements. The reservoir is finally complete and permitted so that the city can of Canton can release water as needed during periods of drought. And after considerable discussion, the council has generally agreed to keep the reservoir and not to sell any portion of its capacity. This is, again, a result of the debt reduction and improved financial status. While we do not need this capacity at this time, this is an insurance policy for our water supply and a tremendous gift to future generations. The Etowah River Park has been designed and bid, and construction should begin this spring. The council approved funding for the DDA to hire a part-time manager of the theater. Funds for movie equipment were appropriated and the equipment installation is nearing completion. The farmers market and the Taste of Canton continued to expand this past year, and the Main Street Board began the extremely successful First Friday event. With the help of Lane Wood, Roy Taylor, Home Depot, and many others, we began a successful community garden up on Big Oak Drive. Northside Hospital Cherokee broke ground for the new hospital near Canton Marketplace. This is a 3-year construction of an ultimately major medical campus. We also had another successful year at our golf course. It appears that the golf course is doing very well. Any year that we don't have to really pump money into it is successful. We have moved ahead with the engineering design for improvements at our wastewater treatment plant, a major step in meeting the requirements of our consent order. Also, the city took a progressive step for the future of our city's recreational facilities and possible new fire department by contracting to purchase 20 acres along the banks of the Hickory Log Creek Reservoir on Bluffs Parkway. We made quite a bit of progress, I think, but there's a lot more to do. Although we did make some progress on some fronts, there were also some low points for our city. The council's working relationship was not as good as it should have been. There was a failure at times to respect our fellow elected office holders. We can and will do better than that. We wasted some time on some minor issues that were very costly and consumed a lot of valuable council time. There were detrimental effects, in my opinion, on the operation of the mayor's office. While I have no one to open mail each day, answer questions, and resolve problems that our citizens may have, I will try to do the best that I can. But all our citizens need a direct mayor's office contact at City Hall. When I began my first term as your mayor, more public input and better customer service were the cornerstones of my administration. The public impression of our council now seems to be that we're slipping back into the past and discouraging some public participation and input. We must turn this perception around and do so now. We must welcome those who wish to either voice approval or disapproval of our actions. It is the only way this council can truly represent the wishes of its citizens. The Charter Study Committee, comprised of 15 hard-working citizens, spent almost 2 years to bring forth their charter improvement recommendations. The council approved their work product unanimously. Then we began some 6 months later by rejecting some of their work by making numerous charter changes. While I am disappointed in the low points, I'm not bitter or angry, but optimistically determined that the upcoming year will be a banner year for our city. A man may lose an occasional battle, but he is only defeated if he quits. I will not be defeated on issues important to this city. Many years ago, David Brinkley said, "A successful man is one who can lay a firm foundation with the bricks that are thrown at him." This city will be successful. So where do we go from here? We've had a lot of discussion about a vision for our city, or the lack thereof. With the massive debt we have had and the issues we have had to deal with, including our inter-council issues, we have been like the man in the swamp surrounded by alligators. It's hard to remember that the original objective was to drain the swamp. Dealing with future issues is very difficult when you're swamped with problems today. But now is the time to begin anew and in earnest. I am recommending that this council establish a commission of Canton's future to develop Canton's vision through 2050. We must commit to support the efforts and needs of this commission as they go about their work of developing Canton's vision. Although 2050 seems a far distance into the future, the vision must be developed incrementally over both short and long term. The commission should be composed of 21 Canton citizens, 3 appointed by the mayor and 3 by each council member. This commission should develop our city's vision from 2 perspectives. First of all, from an unconstrained vision. Our dreams must far exceed our expectations. What do we want our city to become if we had all the money in the world? What is the perfect vision? What is our most optimistic dream for our city? Secondly, a constrained vision. We must dream big, but we must dream responsibly. In reality, what can we really expect to achieve and when? And what can we afford to do within our financial means? The vision we should seek for this city is not that of the mayor, nor of the council. It is your vision, for it is you who have the power for change. The efforts of the proposed commission in Canton's future will essentially require solicitation of public input, citizen opinions, and recommendations. If we are truly seeking a vision for all of our citizens, then all of our citizens must have input into the final product. This council must support both financially and morally the work of the commission, and there will be some cost involved. These are no ordinary times. Some of the challenges this council must face up to in support of Canton's vision for the future include both short and long-term issues. And among these are the fact that we must engage a professional organization to develop a brand for our city, which may be the basis for and help shape the direction of our vision. This city must have an identity. We must develop an overall citywide development plan and pursue only those developments, both residential and commercial, that add quality, not just quantity, to our city. Our economic development efforts must be enhanced on all fronts. We must protect our river now. We are so fortunate to have a river running through the heart of our city. We must have an Etowah River protection plan. Not to do so will betray future generations and deprive them of the beauty and the utility of this great resource. The Atlanta Regional Commission can assist in this effort, but it is our responsibility to protect the river. We must move quickly to develop a new park on the 20 acres at the Reservoir on Bluffs Parkway. We must support and expand the arts and cultural opportunities for our city. Perhaps a director of cultural affairs would be in order. We must work to make downtown a walkable, active, and vibrant area. Downtown must be a destination where dining, shopping, and activities for enjoyment are highly desired. We must strengthen our ethics ordinance. Our city's image has suffered in recent times. Let's make a statement of commitment by strengthening our ethics ordinance and complying strictly with the Georgia open meetings and open records laws. This council can only govern with public trust. Good ethics is essential to developing public trust. We must work to improve all our emergency services and all city services at the most economical cost. Decisions should be based on good economic data. We should work to develop a Department of Recreation for our city, in charge of all parks and recreational activities. Eventually, our recreation department should manage facilities with buildings like the Y has, so that all citizens can participate in the activities offered there. All our recreational facilities should be available to all citizens regardless of financial abilities. We should maximize the use of all facilities and resources for recreational purposes, including the Etowah River. I further encourage the development of play areas for children with varying disabilities. This council should support downtown and citywide events and find the funding to expand these activities throughout the city. The rental car tax and other user fees are highly preferable to property tax increases. Of great importance to the taxpayers of this city is that we must continue to work to make this city debt-free. We must work to ensure that the school board builds its new central office building in the downtown area. We must work to complete the Trails project connecting Etowah River Park with Bowling Park and coordinate this with the county Trails plan. We must work to expand public input and public participation in all our city's business. Dwight Eisenhower in 1950 said that we need not to fear the expression of ideas. We need to fear the suppression. There are only a few of these are only a few of the initiatives our council and the Commission on Canton's Future must consider if the realization of our city's vision is to be achieved. Public service is not an easy avocation. I think many of these gentlemen realize that as I do. And it gets harder all the time. Please, there are far more criticisms than praise. Please understand that some of the quotes I'm about to give you are tongue-in-cheek and not all that serious. Lyndon Johnson said that if one morning, this is some of the responses you see in the newspaper, you know, if one morning I walked on top of the Potomac River, the headline that afternoon would read, "President cannot swim." John Adams, and I take liberty to adapt his quote somewhat, said, "In my years I have come to the conclusion that one useless man is a shame, 2 is a law firm, and 3 or more is a council." In the Lincoln-Douglas debates in the early 1860s, Douglas accused Lincoln of being two-faced, to which he replied, "If I were two-faced, you think I would be wearing this one?" And Rutherford B. Hayes in 1878 said, "Nothing brings out the lower traits of human nature like office seeking." I think there's a lot of truth to that. I understand that deals and compromises are sometimes necessary along the way. And we have to do things that really might be against our better judgment, but with all things considered are in the best interest of our city. Ronald Reagan said that politics is supposed to be the world's second oldest profession. I have come to realize that it bears a very close resemblance to the first. But you know, politics is a necessary evil to make this world a better place. I challenge this council, the citizens of this city, business owners all, to lead the way into the future by supporting the Commission on Canton's Future. James Monroe said that if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. That is our council's charge. I hope this council will become leaders as we follow the path of our city's vision into the future. Although we can lead, the fate and future is not in the hands of the governing authority, but in the hands of those governed. For once again, it is you that have the power for change. While we cannot change the way our council has performed in the past, we can change the way we move forward. And now is the time to move forward. Okay. She did have it. Okay, we're now at 10-minute public input. I believe we have no one signed up. Is that right?
At 3 minutes to 6.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to consider the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to remove item 10I from the agenda.
Okay, 10. Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a recommendation to move to the consent agenda under old business 9A, 9B, and 9C. Under new business, item number E, F, G, and H. We have had this document in our hands. We discussed a number of these. Also, we had an excellent letter, again, from our city manager, Mr. Wood, expressing some urgency on a number of these items, and I'd like to get that cleared up this evening.
Okay. Any objection to those items being moved? Any other changes? Yes, sir.
I had a question on G. That since we're moving to consent agenda, I guess we wouldn't have any discussion of item G. And my question, if I'm addressing, then you gotta move it if it's.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Let's see if we can.
I'm assuming the split on that driveway paving bid is 75-25, that we're paying 25%, and that 75% is being paid by, because it wasn't safe. Fine, but I have no problem. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anything else that needs to be changed? Okay, Susan, you have that, all that, okay. All right, with those changes, accept the motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Have a motion?
So we're not complicated.
Okay.
So 9B be moved to consent.
It was. Do we want to,
Yes.
you do want to move the bids for the bill?
Well,
is it ready for that?
As long as it's clear, no, I'm sorry, 9A is what I meant to ask you about, 9A. As long as it's clear that that is a declaration of emergency,
Yes.
and that you are authorized to sign that contract.
Right, that's what it says there.
You're talking about voting on that tonight? Because that's what, I don't know, what is moving to consent agenda mean?
Yes.
And each when we vote on it, we approve all those items.
Well, we
Voting
can't,
tonight?
I just want to be sure.
we can't vote on the emergency for the reservoir.
Well, no, we're not actually, we're only voting to move those items on the agenda. We're not voting to approve anything other than basically, we probably ought to pull that. We're gonna probably pull that off so we can make it emergency since we're really not voting on other items until the regular meeting.
That's it.
Is that okay?
9A?
That needs to have an actual motion with a description of the emergency.
That's okay, okay. All right, so with the amended agenda then, well, that will go back on the regular agenda then.
Which then would require that we call a vote. Right.
Yes, that's right. Okay.
So then, how come the consent? We vote consent.
Well, we would get them all in one there.
Shot. It would be the same
You said it
thing.
required a separate one, right?
It needs to have a motion with a description of the emergency, if you're gonna declare the.
I think that this discussion is about whether or not when you adopt the consent agenda, you are concurrently affirmatively acting on those items as opposed to consenting to move them to a second agenda to vote on them subsequently.
Right, we would not be acting on those other items tonight. They're for discussion purposes. If we pull A off, we would be acting on it tonight because of declaring it an emergency. Is that okay? Everybody understand that? Okay. But still, those other items will be moved to the consent agenda. Okay. And we're removing I, 10I.
Consent agenda next meeting?
Well, yeah, we're moving it to the consent agenda for the next meeting.
So these things will be on the consent agenda.
They'll be on the consent agenda at the next meeting.
Fine.
Okay.
But I just want to make sure that lift station is on tonight.
Yes, it is. It is. Yes, sir.
I'm just want to be clarified. I didn't understand that this would be moving everything to the next meeting consent agenda. I just thought it'd be moving everything to the next meeting to be discussed, to be.
Okay, he wanted it on the consent agenda,
Well,
I
it's on
believe.
the consent agenda now, but next meeting, would it still be on the consent agenda?
Well, it wouldn't be a need to move it to the consent agenda tonight, actually. No, it wouldn't really be need to do that. It would need to be moved for our next meeting so that, and you want those pulled off?
No,
Okay.
I'm just wondering.
Well, you can always pull them off at the next meeting.
Next meeting,
if you want to. Okay. All right. It's complicated.
The spirit wants to get this thing moving.
I understand.
Which is one of the longest agendas we
We will be getting that main item moving here shortly. Okay. All right. Since you got that in order, Susan, I'm not going to ask you to read it, but We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Not, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Okay, I'll have a consideration, I'll entertain a consideration to approve the minutes from January 17th. It had included in your packet. We do need to approve, we normally do approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Yes.
Motion to approve.
Motion, we have a second.
Second.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I have two changes that I'd like to,
Okay.
page 3, Councilman Bryan, at the top, second paragraph, Councilman Bryan stressed that this does not eliminate the office of Main Street Director, which has already been transferred by default to go under the city manager. The only problem I have is the tense there, and we have not voted on any of movement anywhere of the Main Street, and I'd like the sentence to read, Councilman Bryan stressed that this does not eliminate the office of Main Street Director, which will be transferred by default to the city manager.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
under numerous occasions, and we have discussed in open council meetings, December 6th, I can go through them, I just don't want to spend a lot of time going through it. In the December 20th discussion, the January 17th, and other times, an open conversation with council, that job would remain as a city employee. The person would not lose their job, and what is stated there is correct.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
It was also stated by Mr. Bryan during all of these conversations that that job would remain under the mayor until after we developed the Economic Development Director position, at which time it would then be moved under that position. And all I'm saying is the tense is not correct in this statement. It has always been discussed as being, it would occur, and it was a discussion. No vote has ever been taken as to that, but there was a consensus, and it should read, which will be, because my understanding was that that would be moved at the time we developed the economic director, and at that point in time, the Main Street director would be moved to report to that particular individual. And I think Mr. Bryan could answer
Is that correct?
No, sir. This is a record of what I said. The minutes are a record of what was said, and that is what I said. It's that
Okay.
simple.
All right, now, is there any other changes that you recommended?
to the minutes. Yeah, just spelling change.
Just a spelling change?
Yes, that'd be on page 5, under F. It's February is misspelled and the date is incorrect. So,
Do we have a motion on those minutes? Oh, I have a motion and a second. Okay.
Yes, you do.
All right.
the spelling corrections is all that is.
Are you,
The comment is asking the person making the motion if they would accept those changes.
No.
okay. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Okay, the minutes are approved as presented. All right, the consent agenda, items to consider for the consent agenda, I believe we have talked about that, which is going to be the acknowledgement of the December financials. Does anybody have any question about those at this point? Also, item 9B will be moved to the consent agenda. for the next meeting. Item C, 9C, will be moved to the consent agenda, as well as item 10, E, F, G, and H. Is that correct? Okay. All right, so, does anyone have any problems with those being moved to the consent agenda?
Did you also,
I just have one question.
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure that Mr. Wood doesn't have anything that needs to be done other than that one item that we've changed. We put back on for item
It would need to be
9A.
declared an emergency. Yeah, it would need to be declared an
In your,
emergency.
in your letter, you stipulated a number of these items that need to be taken care of pretty quickly. That's all I was trying to do. You're okay. Thank you.
Okay, item 9, under old business, 9A, discussion of possible declaration of emergency regarding Harmon Field Lift Station and authorization for the mayor to sign contract with Willow Construction. Do I have a motion that we declare that this will repair that lift station an emergency?
If we could just have a description of the emergency first.
Okay. You want to give the old date?
It doesn't matter, the description is that the, and this has been, I think, articulated in at least 2 prior discussions, including the joint meeting we had here with the Cobb Marietta Water Authority, and then more recently addressed in my management letter last week. But basically, we have a very important lift station that is not functioning, and we're spending about $25,000 a month in pump those and related costs.
Okay. So we have a motion to declare an emergency. Do we have a second? Second. Have a motion, second. Any other discussion or questions? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It is an emergency. Now, that declared an emergency, now we need to approve it, right? We need to approve the authorization for the mayor to sign a contract with Willow Construction.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that the mayor sign a contract with
Okay.
Construction.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? Yes, sir.
Did we have any other bids on that? And if so, was this the lowest bid or the most desirable bid selection of this contractor?
Yes, sir, the answer to each of those questions would be in the affirmative.
Okay, thank you.
But it was the lowest bid. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Under new business, item 10A, discussion of proposed amendment to Canton Code Section 2-90 regarding decorum. Councilman Rush.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only purpose of this motion and this ordinance change is to allow free discussion at the work session instead of having to speak directly to the mayor, because at times it's gotten to be comical. We look at the mayor, but we're talking to another councilman. That's the only purpose, is to allow a little more free discussion. Since this is only a work session, we generally don't vote on anything. That's my whole intent.
Well, I think it certainly has some merit there. Like I had indicated earlier, when we first started the work session, we actually had tables out front, and it was really, give and take, discussion back and forth. The public was welcome at that point, but they didn't get involved at that point in that discussion. I can see, it seemed like when we got up here, it suddenly became very formal around the horseshoe here. And there was a little less. As long as we can do so with respect and courtesy with one another, I think we ought to be able to ask each other questions and get answers, and to not talk, as long as we're not talking over one another, so the public and each of us can't hear.
I concur with Mr. Rush. I'd just like to clarify one thing, is that as we address one another, that it not be getting and not create a assignment of the floor position, i.e., if I have a question of Mr. Huffman, I would go as a question, but the floor would return to me, not Mr. Huffman to Mr. Beresford to Mr. Bryant to Mr. Goodwin. I think that would create a problem if we get into the position of where we lose where the floor is at a particular time. So I would like to just say that and rather than may address, may ask a question of, to get information, and then return the floor to the person that has the floor.
Any other comments or thoughts on that?
And on C, the only other thing I had is, I've always had a problem, even though it's the same as the current ordinance, I don't have any problem, but except when we go to the second, or I guess it's the third sentence, the mayor can rule on the question. Actually, it's the mayor can rule on the point of order, I think it should state rather than the question.
Yeah, the only, and I agree with you, except for, because when I'm looking at this, there are other points of order. And this is the only one that, well, I mean, this is the only one that specifically said that he can give it to the city council. The mayor rules on other points of order, I believe.
Yeah, but I think it says here, the mayor shall enforce these rules of decorum. If a council member believes the rules are broken, he can raise a point of order. Well, would not, raising that point of order, would not the mayor can rule on the point of order that's being raised, not on the question, because question implies other things like end of discussion and so forth. It's not.
We can change that, that's what it says now.
Yeah, I know,
understand
but I
your
never
point.
agreed with what it says now.
I mean, sure, we can clarify that. I don't think.
I mean, if everybody else is in concurrence, but I think it's just,
I don't have any problem. All I want to see is,
yeah.
it working.
Give it a second.
Yeah.
Can you look at that between now and then?
Yeah, I can, and I think on the other point, I mean, the mayor would still be in control of who talks, but none of that's changing. If that needs to be clarified, we can do that as well.
That was it. Thank you.
Okay. Item 10B, discussion of fee waiver request by KTV Properties LLC for at 449 Hospital Road. Mr. Wood?
Mr. Mayor, we received a request late this afternoon, and I guess around 4 o'clock, that request be withdrawn.
Okay, this council will allow that request to be withdrawn, I'm assuming. I think probably we probably need a motion to do that.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second to allow that request to be withdrawn. Any discussion? Mr. Hubbard?
And I've looked at that property on several occasions, they go up that way. Is there a particular thing that's changed that? Are they gonna put the fence and gate up? Are they gonna?
This was regarding the fee, not regarding the fence or the gate.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just regarding the fee.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Got you.
Had a motion and a second to allow the,
Can we vote on that?
yes, we do.
Okay.
Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Okay. Discussion of the 5-year update on Livable Centers Initiative and resolution to transmit to ARC for review and approval. Mr. Wood?
We'll try to answer any questions that we can. Mr. Patton is at the Georgia Association of Zoning Officials Conference in Athens this week, but Steve Green is here to answer any questions from downstairs if council has any.
Any questions? Okay, if not, we will move that along to the next agenda for action. Item D, discussion resolution to adopt the annual update containing amended capital improvements element and 5-year short-term work plan and impact fee program. Mr. Wood.
Same thing. I think council's been afforded a copy of that and had an opportunity to review it. And so if there are any questions about that, there again, we'll do that to try to answer.
Any questions, comments? Okay, we'll move that along to the next agenda. Okay, moving along to item J, discussion of council meeting format. Mr. Bryan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm got a feeling I may be in the minority on this one, but I would just like to hear other opinions on my suggestion that we just go back to the format of every meeting being a regular meeting. It seems that it's almost a standing joke. It's become comical. We always have to waive the rule, bend the rule every time and vote on something. There's a question, do we vote, do we not vote? Again, according to the state law, anytime there's a quorum in a public meeting, the potential to vote is there. So I think the public needs to not have to wonder, are they going to vote on it? Are they going to change the rule and vote on this? Are they going to change the rule and not vote on it? Why not just make it consistent? Every meeting is a voting meeting. I mean, I really liked the concept of the work session as we started it, but it's just proven unwieldy and impractical. You know, tonight's a good example. We spent 10 to 15 minutes of confusion. The folks are kind of giggling and carrying on, and we are too, because we're confused. Let's just make every meeting the same. It's just a voting meeting. We can have special call work sessions if we need to, if there's certain issues, for example, like we did on the zoning ordinance last week, and you know, that works pretty well also. So my suggestion again is that we just simplify. I like to quote people too, you know, I think it was Thoreau that said that. Let's just keep it simple. Every meeting's a voting meeting. And I would like to hear from others.
Mr. Bishop?
Thank you. I think the way we just handled this evening with this issue that came up emergency, and or if we do feel there's a need for a vote, that we can, I think if we can stay with the current format, this is a work session, and that gets a lot of things cleared and discussed before we come back in for a final vote in 2 weeks. But also in the same vein, don't make it such a big issue that we're going to say, we need a vote on this evening, and do it. I think here's where the big rub comes in. What declares an emergency? And if we can just say, I would like to say we need to vote, then let's vote, and not make a big issue of it. That's my point.
Well, Mr. Huffman, Mr. Cummings, are you next?
Yeah. I also don't really have a problem with that. The only thing that I would like to prevent is that we don't introduce an item at the beginning of the meeting that the public is totally unaware of and decide that we're going to vote on that. So I would like new business that where any council member would feel that a discussion should occur on that item and that public input should be available, not be voted on unless it is an emergency. But then on the other hand, there's minutia items that we are going to be able to vote 6-0, for example, this idea of having on a work session whether or not the $63 charge for running for council and have to wait to the next meeting to vote for it. To my mind, that's something that we're all going to vote yay for, and nobody's going to say, I think we need to have that discussed and put out to the public. So I would think as long as we had some latitude of where a council member could say, I think this is an issue of importance that should be discussed and then voted on, then I could go along with that.
Mr. Huffman, you have something, and then.
Well, I was originally against the new format from the get-go, because I like to just move forward. So I would say we need to do this. We just need to move our agendas forward. We're just slow and dragging this thing out and make us look any better. So, Mr. Cummings' recommendation, that's an improvement. I'm supporting either one of the two.
Mr. Rush?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'm of the opinion that, if you excuse the pun, I don't think we should rush to judgment on any issue that comes forward. We put it on the work session as a discussion item. We give the public a chance to look at it and understand it and review it. and then when it comes back, the time we're gonna vote on it. And I also, I may be mistaken, but I believe the city attorney has told us at times that if we're at a work session and we need to vote on an issue, we can. So I think am I correct in that? So I think we cover all bases with the procedure we have, and I would just as soon leave it as it is.
I don't have a great problem with the changing the format per se. However, as everyone knows, the wheels of government move slowly. And I tend to believe they're sort of designed that way to a great extent, so that more people can have a greater opportunity to know what's going on, and those who are governing will have a longer opportunity to understand the issues and receive input and make up their minds. I like the work session. I'm not totally happy with the way it operates. I think there's a better way of doing it. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but I think that there should be. But whatever y'all decide, and I think that between now and the next meeting, I would hope that y'all would give a lot of thought to it and make up your mind. So
It'll require an ordinance change, so we wouldn't be able to do it.
After operating with this for several months, I can't honestly say that I don't want to say it in the wrong word, that I see that the public understands these issues any better by going through the work sessions and then voting than just bringing it up and voting. Maybe they are, but it hadn't been displayed too much.
I think the key too is that they at least have the opportunity, maybe a greater opportunity. Now, whether they do it or not,
Yes, they have the opportunity. You're right.
it's kind of,
The only other point that I might bring, it's not just the public, but it's us as council members. It's conceivable that an item comes up on a work session that 3 or 4 of you have a vast familiarity with, and the other 2 of us don't, being the minority, and therefore we're hit sort of short time without any, immediately going to voting, rather than listening to the discussion and then going doing our own research. So in that particular point, it's not just the public, but could be us ourselves.
well, why don't we just move this for the next meeting for further discussion and any other comments that anybody has, or, and if you decide you want to do an ordinance amendment, then, that could be the first reading at the next meeting if you want to do that. Mr. Brown?
I told myself I would only comment once, but I'm sorry, I do want to leave with one last thought. It just did occur to me, the county does have work sessions, but if I'm not mistaken, they have a work session before every meeting, and then every meeting is a voting meeting, right?
I think that's correct.
So they have 2 per month. Their work sessions are long, drawn-out affairs, starting at like 3 in the afternoon.
Right.
And then their meetings are short because the way it's been paid through the work session. That's probably where some of our dysfunction, if you will, or problems are coming in, is that we're trying to have a work session and then wait 2 weeks to vote on it, and almost without fail every time there's an item that has to be voted on. And I think the fact is that, again, anytime 4 out of the 6 agree to vote on something, the council can do anything it wants to. It can change the agenda, it can amend the agenda, vote anytime. So it's not intentionally deceptive to the public, but it is misleading, because some people could think, well, this is a work session, they're just going to talk about this issue, but then we may become convinced it's an emergency and we vote on it, and then the person missed out that had intended to come 2 weeks and talk. So I think if we need to tighten it up some way, but every time we meet, we can vote. And so that's where if I would be willing to consider maybe having a work session before the meetings, and then, like the county does it, that might be a way to do it. But I don't feel strongly about it one way or the other. I don't have the answer on that, but I do know that we needed to change something. Thanks.
The only problem, I guess I have having a work session before, if we were to say meet at 3 o'clock, and our work session lasted an hour or something, then somebody's gotta hang around for another 2 hours to start the 6 o'clock meeting, you know? Kinda just doing nothing, I guess, I don't know. But,
Or whatever, trying to use that format.
Maybe if we started it a little later, we would have a known time constraint. You know, if we started it even at 4:30 or 5 or whatever.
well, I think it's worth additional discussion, so, why don't we put it on the agenda for next meeting?
Just one other point on that is that what we're trying to do, having the work session and having our voting session, is be very transparent. The problem is with having a work session in the afternoon, some people will be at work. Some people like to have great interest, won't be able to attend. Having it, where we're having it right now, it's very open. So I think, I'd say, I couldn't support early session and then break into another.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Discussion of citywide committee slate.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
if I may speak to that subject. There is a lot of banner going about what this is all about. I just want to say that the council is not trying to do anything that is disruptive or unorganized or anything else. Normally what happens in the first of the year, we have a slate brought to council by you, and then we are to review that slate. We did not have that in January, which is okay. There was a lot of things going on. But the key element here is it's going to be called a citywide committee slate. Back in the year 2000, we had about a population of 5,000. In 2010, we were looking around 23,000. What we've happened in those periods of time is we've had a lot of new people move into the city, and we would like to be able to broaden the base of these committees and bring in people from outside of just the old group that have been for a long time. Nothing against anybody, it's just an opportunity to expand. And I want to say that in the spirit that you called for in your address to the city, the council has said, let's do as it's supposed to under Article, don't have that here, Andy. But anyway, the code says you will bring forward your slate and nominees, and then the council will either accept or nominate a candidate for self. Therefore, I would like to ask, Mr. Mayor, if you would be so kind as to bring forward your slate of candidates.
Okay, let me first of all say I'd like to thank the council and other citizens who have graciously submitted names of people, way more names actually than we even had slots for. And also, I'd like to thank each of those individuals who have been serving on these committees, and because I think they've done a good job, and in many cases I will ask and nominate that they be reappointed. But I think that you know, we have quite honestly several committees that unfortunately some of them never meet, and the reason they never meet because they were vehicles for accruing debt, and once they got the debt accrued, you know, they're just there, and we really can't get rid of them because they have debt associated with them, as I understand it, unless the bonds that are associated with them were paid off on some of these, and they haven't been at this point. But we do have quite a few that you'll recognize, some of them you may not recognize. But I would like to go over a number of these committees and boards and so forth, and I will make some recommendations that will go to the council in 2 weeks and for their consideration. Relative to the Downtown Development Authority, we don't have any slots available at this time. The next terms will end June 30th of this year. At that time, there will be like 4 slots that will be open for reappointment or replacement. The Housing Authority, I would like to recommend, and I received a letter from Sherry Atkins, who is the director of the Housing Authority. I would like stating that Ms. Dee Durham, due to health reasons, was unable to continue in serving her term. I'd like to nominate Pat Tanner to serve in that capacity. She has done so in the past, and she has accepted that for the term, which will expire in May of this year, and she would be subject to reappointment at that time. I would also like to go ahead and nominate Clayton Reed. His term actually ends in March, next month, March the 10th. I'd like to go ahead and nominate him for reappointment to his term, 2-year terms. The Canton Development Authority, there are no terms open yet, will not be any, and there will be 3 at the end of this year, 2013. The Canton Building Authority, there's none of them are open at this time. They're also 12/31/13. The Urban Redevelopment Agency, and this is one of those agencies that most people have no idea what they are. I'm not sure in the past some of the members knew what they were supposed to do, because it's just simply a vehicle for that. But you have to have members on this board, and I would recommend the reappointment of Tommy Justice, reappointment of Andy Alexander. I would recommend the appointment of Mr. David Resendez to replace Glenn Cummins. And Glenn, what we found out in trying to update and work with these committees is that elected officials, unless it specifically states the authority for the elected officials to be a member of that body, that they cannot serve on those authorities or boards or commissions. That is in our charter. So we did learn that, so we're trying to rectify that situation. I would recommend Derek Grimes be appointed, and I would recommend the appointment of Clay Cowie to replace also Mr. Goodwin on that one, because as an elected official, he could not serve on that. So we're learning all the time, obviously. Under Canton Preservation, Inc., I would recommend the reappointment of Nell Magruder, the reappointment of Jack Whitmire, and the appointment of Stephanie Joyner to replace Skip Spears on that body. Under Canton Tourism, Inc., I would recommend the reappointment of Pat Gold, the reappointment of Bill Magruder, the reappointment of Joyce Scundell, reappointment of George Murphy, and reappointment of Francis Vaughn. All those are annual terms, and will be up again in December of 2013. I would recommend those reappointments. Under the Tree City of Canton, I don't believe, I would recommend, we have 1, 2, 3, essentially 4 individuals. The reappointment of Francis Vaughn, her term is up. Reappointment of Joan Anderson. I recommend the reappointment of Jerry Merritt and the reappointment of Scott Wood as the city manager, is one, or his designee, I believe, is one of the positions that are required under the Tree City of Canton. The Planning Commission, Planning and Zoning, there are no appointments. They the appointments that are up in December of 13 and December of 14. So there will be 1, 2, 3 up in December of 13, open, and 4 in 14. But this year there is not any, and the same is true for the Zoning Board of Appeals. There was a problem, a mix-up, and Mr. Patton contacted me. I believe Mr. Bonner actually visited him yesterday or day before to ask about his term, and as it turned out, we had some of the terms had been either misprinted or miscommunicated some way or another, so that instead of ending in December of 12, They didn't end actually until December 13th. And the same is the case with the Zoning Board of Appeals or Variance Board. So there are no terms up in that. Under the Stormwater Advisory Board, which are annual appointments, I would recommend the reappointment of Jane Shellman as chair, the reappointment of Jack Fincher. I would recommend the appointment of Howard Levy to replace Mr. Beresford on that committee. Once again, that's an elected official on the body, and we need to make that correction. I recommend the reappointment of Steve Paget. I recommend the reappointment of Skip Spears on the Stormwater, the reappointment of Ben Key, and the reappointment of Bill Kent. The Library Board is not up until June 30th of 2014. Deborah Fincher currently serves a 3-year term in that capacity. Canton Main Street Board, I am recommending there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 positions that are either up for reappointment or replacement. And I am recommending the reappointment of Bill Grant, the reappointment of Ferris Young, the reappointment of Pat Gold, the reappointment of Stephanie Joyner, the reappointment of Neil Magruder, and the reappointment of Wanda Roach on that body. Now, these are somewhat unique, those particular positions. We have 4 at-large positions, although none of them are up at this time. They'll be up at the end of this year. But these positions do require that they, under their bylaws, that they come from certain agencies. For instance, like Pat Gold, I believe, is Canton Tourism, Stephanie Joyner, the Historical Society, Wanda Roach from the DDA, and so forth. There's the idea behind that was that all the various agencies who have an interest in downtown being successful would have a representative on there so they could communicate not just among themselves but back to their respective agencies so that everybody would have an idea of what's going on. If one agency didn't know, it was because their representative didn't go back and discuss it with them. And they should also bring from their agencies the activities that they're having and so forth to that body. So anyway, that would be my recommendations on that. On the Impact Fee Advisory Committee, I would recommend the appointment of Glenn Bliss to replace Mr. Goodwin, once again elected official. I would recommend that the appointment of Mark Canakaris, I may have pronounced that wrong, I'm not sure who nominated, is that correct? Yes. Canakaris? Okay. And the appointment of David Allens, A-L-E-N-I-Z. I would recommend the appointment of Doug Williams, reappointment of Doug Williams, and the reappointment of George McClure. And also would add one, the reappointment of James Bagwell. The requirement, as I understand it, for the Impact Fee Advisory Committee is that at least 50% of that body be represented by the development or real estate community. So based on what we have here, we believe we have 3 of the 6 represent that. So that would be the full slate that I would recommend nomination of. Now, the council at the February 21st meeting will take these names and they can vote to reject those nominations. If they reject a nomination, then that nomination is no longer on the table, and the council themselves then can nominate somebody and vote to put someone else in that slot. Okay. Any input, Bill?
Yes, sir. I just have one question, Mr. Mayor. On the Main Street Board, you had named some of your reappointment nominees as to which body they were with. Would you have that with you so we could just make our notes here?
Let me see. Hold on a minute. Mr. Beresford, you have that? I'm not sure whether I brought mine. I did. I left my folder downstairs that had most of that in it.
Yes.
I believe Bill. Let me find that just a second. Okay.
I'll read
Bill
it.
Grant is the homeowners, historical homeowners, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Fair Shown is the downtown business representative.
Association, yeah.
Association. Pat Gold is tourism. Stephanie Joyner's Historical Society. Nell Magruder is
Preservation. Preservation.
Canton Preservation Inc. Wanda Roach is the DDA.
Correct. TJ Cock is Cherokee County Art Council. Andy Bonner is Canton Building Authority. The others are at large.
And none of those are actually up at this time, however. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Jackson.
It's not so much a question, except that, you know, really looking at this, first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone that's participated in these boards, because it does take your time. We appreciate your time and your effort. But second of all, I know most of these people really have other things they could be doing, and we appreciate them coming. And I think they have some valuable input in what goes on. Lots of them have been on these boards, some of them one term, some of them going on their second term. I'd like to possibly see us, I know some of them are constricted with only so many members in the charter, I guess. I would like to see us keep majority of what we have, but also think about adding a few more people, so that we have some new blood coming in to understand exactly what they're doing. And if someone wants to drop off, you still have got a pretty good sized board. I don't know if that's possible or not, but I think people that are on these boards do a good job. And, you know, I think if we could add a few people to that, it'd make it even better.
Well, we have added some new folks here in some positions, and of course the council has that opportunity to do so in 2 weeks. But I don't know if you were talking about adding more members.
I was.
I'm not sure whether that's a possibility.
I was talking about keeping the same board and adding some other members, maybe 2 or 3 members.
I think some of these are controlled, like certain authorities, DDA is, I believe it may have state its number, and some of the others may state the number of members that they have, so I don't know if we can do that or not.
Also, the state dictates numbers on the boards.
Right, some of them they do.
So we're trying to stay within those bounds and work through that. So
Okay.
we did add that one, so it was legit to be able to add that, so. Mr.
Any
Mayor,
other? I'm sorry, sir.
one of the things that you said on this current slate, if the council needs to say we'd like to make a nomination or
Right.
we would make sure that we would bring a short bio of
Yes,
that individual.
that's right. I would like
that-
for you to do that, especially on any of those that are new. If you're gonna nominate someone new, or even these new ones that we nominated here that I've recommended, I would like for the person who submitted their name, if they would, to just describe this person, tell a little bit about them, where they live, and maybe what their profession or their work is, and you know, their interest and so forth. Because I think that's important that we know that. Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you. Let's see. The next item, I believe, is item L, discussion of 2012 budget amendment 14. Would you entertain any questions? These are audit budget adjustments is what it amounts to.
Right, as I mentioned in the management letter, those are just variance adjustments.
Mr. Gunn?
I think this is a good representation of something that could be voted on. And the discussion went back to the prior one, because rarely do we not approve the budget adjustments. So this would be a good example in my mind of something that could come to a meeting, whether it be a work session like this, and could have been voted on tonight. So should we choose to do so?
Okay, thank you.
Do you want to?
I don't think we finished the discussion of changing how the work session and the voting session works, but I think this is an example of where we could vote on something and a work session and say, why do we need to have that and a work session, and then later add a voting session, because it's in all likelihood gonna be a 6-0 vote anyway.
I wasn't going to say anything about this particular item tonight, but it's one that fits within the context of what you're saying, and that is a copier lease.
Yeah.
Why do you want to roll that over
Yeah.
meeting after meeting?
Well, that was part of the item that was on there to get it out of the way. Excuse me, I didn't mean to. Go ahead.
Yes.
Under these budget adjustments needed, this is part of wrapping up our audit. And we are, from what I understand, and my hat's off to our CFO, outstanding job. We're ahead of the normal time frame that we usually look at an audit. Now, I do not want this to delay anything that we might need to do. It doesn't delay.
It's okay, schedule-wise, it's okay, but that's not to contradict Mr. Cummings' point that, I mean, it's not anything that's worth upsetting the established schedule on tonight, but I think his point was that if you decide to change that schedule, this is an example of the kind of item that you would go ahead and vote on tonight as initially.
Exactly.
My question is, Nathan, have you not already made those adjustments?
Yes, sir.
That's what I thought.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to reconfirm what I thought I said, well, I did say earlier, is that the city attorney told us if we want to vote on this right now, we can. So in essence, this can be a voting meeting if we so decide.
Absolutely.
If I could put my 2 cents in. To me, it's a question of what's the default. Is the default going to be it's a voting meeting and then you choose to push things over? Or is the default going to be not voting and you choose to vote? And I think Brian's point is just, it's misleading to say you're not going to vote and then vote, as opposed to say you're going to vote and then choose to push it off. But that's what you're really choosing.
Right.
We're going to vote unless we decide not to, if I table it until next time or whatever.
What I prefer the second.
If you're going to call it a work session, then it should be considered a non-voting meeting in that. So we have this little disagreement here, but it's semantics because it doesn't matter, Rose by any other name, you know.
Absolutely. And the one other point, it's ludicrous to go and say, well, we're going to approve it, let's all sit here and shake our heads, which means go ahead and sign the document or go ahead and do it, and then we'll vote later. Why not just step up and say, we'd like to be able to do that?
You see, a lot of these things, though, it's kind of like my comment a minute ago, that things they're going to do anyway, go ahead and do them. And if you want to bring, when you're going to bring them to us, bring them to us, and they're going to be approved, you know, if it's something that has to be done anyway.
I'll make the motion, we approve these budget amendments.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Done deal. This one will not be on the agenda for 2 weeks from now.
And Nate can sleep easy tonight, knowing it's already been done.
Knowing that we have supported something he already did, right? The item M, discussion of proposed recycle bank program. What it says, they done?
Mr. Dick Knight from Waste Management is here to talk about, I think I mentioned this in our management letter to you, which is, it's an opportunity for us to be recognized as, I believe, one of 5 cities, Vic, in the country that will be recognized by Walmart and Miller Coors as part of a recycling emphasis.
Exactly, yes, and I've got a brochure here I'd like to pass out if I could, just a few brief points about Recycle Bank, because I wasn't sure if everyone was real familiar with Recycle Bank, so just entertain you there. I'll be brief. Basically, Recycle Bank's been around for quite a few years, established in 2004. Got 4 million customers. It's, Waste Management is an investor of Recycle Bank. We don't own them, we are invested along with other companies, including Coca-Cola. The Recycle Bank typically comes into communities and promotes sustainability through recycling. And just getting the community to participate in things like recycling. And if you'll look through that, you can kind of see it. I'm not going to bore you with all the details of that. Again, they've got 4 million customers. They have 4,000 reward partners. And basically what a reward partner is, it's like a Home Depot, Office Depot, just to name a few restaurants, some of your national chains. But when they come into a community like Canton, we also try to sign up some of the local communities, some of the local businesses, and like from what I understand, you just had a new Starbucks open. You get involved in some communities like that, and it's easy for them to sign up. It's just a matter if they want to participate. Personally, I can do that, and I plan to do that. Myself, Nathan, Ms. Floyd, and several other staff members meet on a monthly basis, and our goal has been to promote Recycle Bank in the community here. It's something new to the city. When the contract was renewed, it started off as State Green Rewards, which is one of our programs. And then we invested in Recycle Bank, and I'll be the first one to admit they do a much better job than we do. It gave us an opportunity to participate with Recycle Bank and promote it in the community. But to kind of give you an idea, I know you've got the packets, and I'll open it up for questions, what you had in your packet after you reviewed it. But in Canton, you have a fantastic participation in the recycle program. On average, you have about 5,600 set-out, we call set-outs a week. In other words, we provide about 5,600 services a week just for recycling. But from the Recycle Bank standpoint, we only have 106 residents that have signed up for recycling. So you can see we have a lot of opportunity here. They want to grow it. Well, with that, if you're a member of the Recycle Bank program, you can get coupons, actual cash value up to, I think the national average is $165. So that's real money. It's not like a coupon book where you get if you buy 5, you get one free. It's actual dollars. I mean, they've got coupons where if you buy $20, you get $10 off and different things. And again, once we can incorporate some of the local businesses in with it, I think the residents will see a real value. Now, with the opportunity we have, it's like we were talking about earlier. It's a tremendous opportunity. They have 300 communities in 50 states, and Canton is one of 5 that was chosen to participate in this. Miller Coors is basically given $250,000 to promote recycling in the 5 communities, partnered with Waste Management, Recycle Bank, and Walmart. And when the event will take place, sometimes in March, if it's so approved, they will pay for all the advertising. They will send representatives on site, or Recycle Bank will, to help sign up customers. We'll participate, we'll volunteer, we'll have a truck on site, and typically it'll be in a Walmart parking lot. We'll have some type of contest, say for the first so many people that show up, they'll get Walmart gift cards. I'm not sure what the value is. So I think it's a great opportunity for us, along with what we've been striving for, is to improve the Recycle Bank participation. But this just came at a great time for us to be able to use them, use the national and local advertisers. And we also have input for that. We can tell them what we'd like to do, and they'll take care of it. They'll print it for us, they'll put it out, they'll do all the legwork. So
I think we really need to put this out on our water bills with an explanation as to how to get to the website to do what they need to do. People need to know about it. I mean, and I'll be honest with you, I think we signed up at one time, or Ellie did, a long time ago for something, but I don't know that we ever heard anything else saying that.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The current program that we signed up with, is this going to roll us over into this new one, or do we have to?
You're in the Recycle Bank program now. You're signed up for it. If you're in the old one, you're in the new one.
New, that's
Exactly.
So we don't have to.
You don't have to do anything.
Yeah,
That's right.
Dick, I'd just like to mention that, I guess, like you, Mr. Mayor, we signed up a while, very early in the program, and Since that time, my wife has been using the points and gaining the things, and when she talks to some of the neighbors, they say, well, how did you do that, you know? Even though we've talked it up in the neighborhood, many people just don't bother to sign up, but it's a valuable tool.
Exactly.
I like,
One other point.
Jack, go ahead.
I like to say, it's a program that's dear to my heart, because Joanne and I went round and round about this when we were trying to do this contract. And I'm glad to see the city's done so well. But there are, as they all have said, there are many that don't know anything about it as much as we've tried to promote it. And I think Mayor's right, we do need to put it on our water bills, we need to speak up, and we need to put it in the papers. We need to get that out there, because we're doing pretty well the way we are, but we can do really well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Especially.
Yeah, you get a weekly or every 2 weeks, I get on the computer, update on rewards current.
Yeah.
So it's a key,
The other thing I would say, I don't think we should put it on the water bills, because nobody reads the water bill except the numbers. And I think if we're going to put it in the water bill, we should put it as a separate piece of paper. And I've tried this with our staff, and they don't really want to do that. But I think we should, because that's the only way you're going to get people to be aware of it. The same as with the program we adopted for dual flush toilets. Nobody really knows about it, and we haven't promoted it as well as we should have, but it does cost money to put stuff in the water bill, so that's where the dilemma is.
Mary, anyone else? Yes. Mr. Dyer pointed out, it supplies direct mail. Does that include the postage and direct mail to these?
They will pay for any kind of advertising we want to promote this program, but we want to use it as an opportunity to promote the Recycle Bank too. Obviously, that's what it's for, but yes, they will pay for it.
So could we use our database of customers to direct mail to?
And I think it would be a good tie-in to do that, along with the event, once we establish the date of it, to tie it in together. And then, and it's easy to do. I mean, myself and others will be on site to help folks sign up, and maybe they don't have a computer, they can still do it. They don't have to have a computer to do this.
It's fine.
Yes, sir, I'd just like to say I support putting it in the water bill as a separate piece of paper. It's just a matter of convenience. Most people are sitting down at their computer when they're paying their bills. They have them there. They'll have this paper. They can just click over and sign up. As opposed to if we get a direct mailer, it may stack up like mine does, and you may do it or you may not. I just think, I just have a feeling if we put it in the water bill as a separate flyer, I think we'll get both. Get a lot of better response.
Anyone else? Jack?
I'd like to ask you one other question.
Yes, sir.
Do you know when the next shred convention will have for our city?
We have just talked about that last week. We're going to have it the Saturday before Mother's Day.
So here in May?
You said shredding, right?
Yes.
We're trying to incorporate the recycling. I believe so. I can let you know for sure. That's what we discussed in our last meeting.
Yeah.
Have it incorporated with the e-recycling.
That's, well, that's what I'm thinking last.
Anyone else?
Matt, just say that I should have recognized Nathan at the outset. Nathan works awfully hard. Nathan and Wanda both, they are not clock watchers. They do whatever needs to be done. They're often the first ones here in the mornings and the last ones to leave. And personally, I recognize and appreciate what both of you do. This is not in either one of your job description. And I know that. I appreciate it.
They've been very supportive, and I appreciate that.
Okay, anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Appreciate you
Mayor.
being here.
Are we looking to vote on something there, or just?
Do you need an action for us to commit the city's acceptance of this, into this program?
Yes, sir, we didn't want to move without, your recognition or your time.
I can make a motion.
And unfortunately, time is of the essence, so we
It's an emergency, maybe.
How would you like that motion stated?
Recycle Bank program.
approval of the
Accepted.
Recycle Bank program in cooperation with Miller Coors with the Recycle Bank program.
That's the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voted for the motion.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you. City manager's report.
Two or three things, yes, sir. One, I think I sent an email to everybody yesterday about our bids on the reservoir building. They came in a pretty wide stretch between 424 and 734. We are in the process of reviewing those bids. I have reason to believe that the low bid, the 424, it comes to us from a qualified bidder. And I think that if it meets the favor of council, what we will do is try to negotiate with that low bidder and get that number down to 400 or below. But the board of managers, Mr. Page and I will be meeting one day next week, and we'll meet with Mr. Robillard and with that contractor and try to bring you back, hopefully at the next meeting, a recommendation for a bid award.
Didn't you open that meeting to us? I think you said so.
The reservoir board meeting?
Yeah.
You certainly, it's a public meeting, so it's always open to anyone.
Where is it, here?
It's here, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone? Go ahead.
I met this morning with the TPA representatives, and that building, as it's designed, that reservoir building as it is designed, does meet their architectural standards. They might have given us some latitude on that, but what we will try to do is achieve adequate value engineering to reduce the building cost, the project cost, without changing what exterior aesthetic conditions that they've already put in. Met today with the chief of police and the fire chief. The mayor mentioned a while ago, always learning something. Well, I learned something yesterday that I didn't know, and that is that we have an ordinance against smoking in the city within 15 feet of the main entrance of most buildings that can be accessed by the public. I knew that applied to government buildings. I didn't realize that it applied to almost every building. And I've asked the fire chief to have the fire marshal with particular focus on downtown, not exclusively, but initially, since that seems to be where most of our complaints are originating, and because that's where our greatest density issues are, to visit downtown businesses and remind business owners of the existence of that ordinance. And I've asked police and fire chief, obviously we can't dedicate a police officer to being the smoking patrolman, but I think we can be a little bit more vigilant, a little bit more aware of the need to enforce that code. So hope the public will be aware of that point of emphasis by our respective public safety agencies. The Bluffs property, the mayor mentioned in his comments, we have not closed on that property. I want to be sure everybody's aware of that. I was initially led to believe, and I probably led you to believe, that the TPA restrictive covenants did not apply to that property. I think I sent you an email in the last day or two making you aware that the common area charges would apply, as would most of the other restrictive covenants up there. There again, I met this morning, Mr. Dyer and I both did, with two representatives of TPA. I don't think there's any problem that we can't work through. They understand our needs and issues. And I think I was encouraged by the meeting. We do have a common area maintenance fee that we need to anticipate. It will be about $7,000 a year. I happened to have had lunch with Jerry Cooper on Tuesday, and I asked him if the county paid that common area fee annually, and he assured me that they do pay it in a commensurate amount to ours. They've got a roughly commensurate amount of property. Anything else coming out of that meeting, we ought to report. And finally, we had hoped at this meeting to be able to present to you a roads improvements program at which we would identify funding sources for the city, SPLOST, LMIG, others, LMIG meaning state, and also recommend a resurfacing, sidewalks improvements, and striping and signage plan for this year. We need to get that underway as warm weather approaches. Mr. West has had some family issues, as you know, and as well as meeting his civic responsibility by serving the courthouse on the jury. So he's not been able to complete that program, but we're in the process of working on it and hope to have it fine-tuned and able to present to you either at a standalone meeting, similarly to what we did when we met with Cobb Marietta, or as a part of one of these meetings. Also, we owe you a cost-benefit analysis on the sewer line issue, the Pilgrim's Pride sewer line issue. We have not completed that yet, but we owe you that information, and we're aware of that, have not forgotten it, and we'll get that to you as quickly as it's completed.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Mr. Wood, update on the launch site on the Hickory Farm Way.
I'm pleased to tell you that it is it's virtually completed, and we're looking for March 1 time frame to officially commission it. I'm not pleased to tell you that it's cost more than I thought it was going to cost, but that's good and bad.
Mr. Bryan?
Yes, sir, I'd just like to add one comment to Mr. Wood's report. The email where we all learned of the 15-foot smoking ordinance, there was also some concern about same old bugaboo downtown parking. I would just like to ask that anyone that has a business down there, and it's always fun to pick on the lawyers, but there's a lot of lawyers down there. If you're a business owner or working a business downtown all day long, please consider parking away from the main flow of business up and down Main Street. There's some medical facilities and some retail establishments where the customers have trouble parking because there's the same old cars parked there day after day, and they come out and play the 2-hour game. They'll move them to one spot. So please just, until we can get something better, that's, at least we can be considerate neighbors and be aware of businesses where people have to come in for 20 or 30 minutes in and out, and try to leave some of those spaces.
It's a good point. Yes, again, to address Mr. Wood on the parking survey, where does that stand?
We are advertising for the RFPs right now, and as soon as we get those, oddly enough, some of these companies that do that type of work maintain these clipping services, and but already been contacted by 2 companies before we even sent the RFPs out. So they're eager for the work. We'll evaluate those proposals when they come in and make a recommendation on them and go back to the council for the contractor to conduct that study.
Okay, anyone else? Okay. Next item, discussion regarding separation notice for Main Street Director, Mr. Beresford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As earlier discussed this evening by my colleague, Mr. Canton, there was a discussion, and it was never a discussion, or whether you want to go back and forth. And basically, as I said a little while ago, there was numerous discussions on the present position of, I can say her name, Ginger Regard, because it was brought out in the media. Therefore, I don't feel that it needed to go to an executive session to talk personnel, that type of thing, so I feel comfortable with that. But the fact is, we had reassured numerous times in council and individual conversations that that job would be maintained, it would be moved over to Mr. Wood's department, and then once we got ourselves a director of economic development, or whatever title we want to call it, that Ginger would be reporting to there. In the papers, it came out because of lack of work. I think I want to say this, and I want to personally thank, and from the council will be doing the same, we want to thank Ms. Pat Gold and Mr. Bill Grant for working with the city staff and realizing that we want to keep this program running and keep it up to date. There is a lot of work to be done. We've learned that there is a lot of things going on there, and therefore, we will get ourselves in a good position where we can continue the importance of the Main Street program. And I just want to say thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rush, traffic on Highway 1, pedestrian traffic on Highway 140.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've mentioned this to the city manager before, but in my driving down 140, I very often see pedestrians going from just about Pea Ridge area, going towards the city and back again. And I see women carrying babies, groceries. I've even seen a lady pushing a lawnmower, and there is no walkway. There is no sidewalk, and it's dangerous for those people. In fact, this morning I saw a lady carrying groceries and walking up 140. And so I realized, back a couple of years ago, I spoke with the DOT, and they said if we want to put sidewalks, you have to curb it, and it's a big expense. But I'm wondering, and I recognize that not all of that roadway is city. It's city and county, and it's a mishmash. But, you know, we need to do something to protect these people. And I don't know what we can do, so I'd like to ask the city manager to see if he can talk to the county and see if there's anything that we can do to make that pedestrian traffic a little safer. Because in some sections, there's just hardly any room for them to walk.
Absolutely. And I know Mr. Huffman has also mentioned that, Mr. Rush, is the primary focus from Reinhardt back towards town, is that?
No, some north of there too.
It's from
Reinhardt Parkway.
From the fire station there.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. West and I had some discussion about that recently too, and we'll make that, what we'll try to do is talk to the county and at least conduct some analysis of what may be involved in some corresponding cost ranges. As you know from looking at it, it not only is the curbing an issue and an expense, and the fact that it is a state highway, but if you notice just a tenth of a mile or so north of Walmart, on either side or both sides of the road, there is zero shoulder.
You mean Walgreens?
Walgreens, I mean, yeah, there's zero shoulder.
Correct.
So it's gonna be somewhat expensive to build that up. The other thing we may look at, I don't know about the CAT transportation service. I don't know how many of those people may have access to a transportation service and are just not aware of it. But we'll try to look at all those alternatives.
I think one thing we really need to do is load up and go down, talk to our DOT commissioner, and because, you know, that road was slated probably before I went 20 years ago to be upgraded 4 lanes from North Canton down here at Walgreens all the way to Lower Burris Road. And they were going to realign the intersections there at the hospital road, you know, at both ends of it. What we need to do is go down there and talk to maybe our DOT board representatives and see if we can't get them to get that moved up a little bit and get started, because that needs to be done. And if we could get that program going, that would include a lot of that work. So we need to really do that.
Just to echo a little bit about that, in the evening around 4 o'clock or when the high school lets out, there are as many as 15 buses come through that intersection. And it just gets stacked up. Probably the worst intersection in the city by any means. And it stacks up going back up the hill on Highway 5. And it's a very dangerous thing. And then when you make the turn to go up the hill on 140, you got the little road that turns off to the left. It's just right next to the little, where the dental office is. It just stacks up there. And then you just got pedestrians walking all over the place, and it's just, and Hospital Road comes down there. In the mornings, it will stack up during the rush hour time, all the way up to the Hospital Road where it merges in up next to the little church. That's how far it'll back up. So the traffic is there, and the pedestrians, unfortunately, are at risk.
We need to request an up-to-date study of that, if you, Mr. Wood, I think, from the DOT, if we could do that and see if we can get something done in that respect, because it would be difficult for us to be able to afford to do what needs to be done that far up, you know. And particularly since it is a state route, and they need to step up to the plate and do something on that.
It's sometimes down here 20.
Yeah, that's a long time coming, but it needs to be done. Anyone else on that? Okay. Okay, under the mayor's report, Susan, I don't know, did everyone get a copy of this letter, or that Judge Roach?
Yes.
Okay, then I don't need to read it, but basically, other than to say that Judge Roach sent me this, summarizing it sort of, we've been recently informed that by the new solicitor, Jessica Moss, that she is discontinuing that practice of allowing some of the assistant solicitors to take them off of their job to assist our city solicitor. Accordingly, it is necessary to retain a new assistant solicitor. As you're aware, the city has provided, pursuant to federal law, an indigent defense lawyer to provide services for city defendants who cannot afford a lawyer. During the past 2 years plus, we have utilized the services of Mr. David Myers, a local attorney, to provide indigent defense. I'm informed that Mr. Myers currently prosecutes in the city of Jasper court, and by all reports does an outstanding job in that venture. I would therefore recommend for the city's approval that Mr. David Myers be designated assistant solicitor for the city court, a position to be supervised by Mr. Benson Chambers. As a result of that appointment, I would request and recommend that the city approve Mr. Chris Bishop, another local attorney, to fill the role of indigent defense counsel. I anticipate that both appointments will have a zero effect on the city court's budget. Because of Mrs. Moss' late notice as the court administrator, I've authorized Mr. Chambers to appoint Mr. Myers as assistant solicitor on a temporary basis pending the city's approval, and have authorized Ms. Teresa Fish to employ Chris Bishop on an interim basis pending the city's approval as indigent defense counsel. I think we can vote on this at the next meeting. Does anyone have any questions about that? It's obviously something the court needs, and you can vote on it tonight if you want to, or you can move along to the next meeting. But I think that this is something we probably need to do for them, because they had to go ahead and start anyway. Yes, sure. On this, I was not.
Yes. Subject, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we approve it at zero effect on the budget.
That's what he says.
Motion to approve.
Motion second. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Bill, I think we have accomplished what you asked. Another item I wanted to mention, it's not often we get to acknowledge some of our own members here, but I have a picture here with Mr. Rush, and he has received an award of achievement through the GMA for his continuing education. It's not a requirement, but it's voluntary that you do that. But an elected official must complete 72 units of credit through the Training Institute to earn this recognition, and he was given a certificate of achievement at the recent Mayor's Day conference, and I'd like to congratulate him on that achievement.
Well, thank you.
Also, the other thing I would like to ask that just kind of came to mind was relative to our health insurance contract. Is that coming up in April? Or are we getting quotes on
We
it
have
or
another
anything?
year on that, Nathan?
Health insurance is not a contract. It's an agreement. You always prepay insurance. So there's never a contract. Within 30 days, you can always back out.
I think the mayor's talking about.
It renews April 1st. We've got a meeting set up next week they're bringing the premiums for the next year.
Okay, all right, thank you. Go ahead.
One other thing, I don't know if this requires a vote now or any other time, but I wanted to be sure, and I know the mayor's aware of this, he and I have discussed it, but I did want to be sure that everybody was aware of our intention. You know, we've almost completed the new sign down here in the island at North and Waleska. Our intention is to relocate the mill worker statue from Canton Park and incorporate it into the signage in that island. I just wanted to be sure everybody was aware of that.
Everyone was early on, I know, because we talked about that in a meeting and everybody concurred with it at that time, so I don't think anybody's had a change of heart, hopefully.
On another issue,
Yes.
something's brought to my attention. I know several of the council members, and I mentioned to the mayor, Mr. Wood. But we got a bond referendum coming up in March, which is not that far off. It's a very important bond issue, and it relates to the mayor's message, state of the city, earlier today, or tonight. Just recently, the city of Jasper went through their fire evaluation with ISO. It was returned to them that any area outside of a 5-mile radius of their fire station was rated a 9. Anything inside that 5-mile radius was rated whatever they got, 4 or 5, whatever it would be the normal rating. Normal rating. It doesn't mean necessarily that that's the way this city is going to be rated. But it does mean that it could. And if it did, areas like Laurel Canyon, Soleil, Great Sky, I don't know about River Green, maybe not. But if you're outside of that 5-mile radius, we could see insurance rates go as high as possibly a 9. What would help us a lot is that we got to have that fire bond approved to stop that type of action, if indeed it comes to be reality like it did in Jasper. So I just want to mention that because this issue, we're not going to sit down and talk about it on a daily basis, but where we have the opportunity to have the public and the press, that we need to bring these issues to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief, do we have any areas in our city now that are beyond 5 miles?
Yes, sir, we do.
We do?
Yes, sir.
From a fire station?
Yes, sir. We got parts of Laurel Canyon, we have parts of Great Sky, we have parts up on the bluffs, or Bacon Road in that area.
Oh, you mean from a city station?
Yes.
Okay, even though they're within 5 miles of a station?
Some of them may or may not be.
Laurel Canyon certainly is, right?
Laurel Canyon and Great Sky, part of Great Sky could be.
Okay.
Because basically when you're looking at Great Sky, from the road to the very back is just under 5 miles. So when you start pulling away from the entrance to Great Sky, you're starting to get on the borderlines in there. And as Mr. Huffman said, when we're talking about Pickens County or the city of Jasper, they did protest that, so their ISO rating has not gone back. So they're in the process of protesting that rating. So right now, they're still maintaining exactly what they had, but when the ISO evaluator came out, they did say you're at class whatever 9, but they're protesting at this time.
Was that Jasper or was it Pickens
City
County?
of, the city of.
It was the city, okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
River Green does hit the borderline, and Mr. Cummings' residence is beyond the 5-mile limit.
Actually, it's just up there.
When we were looking at River Green, from the South Canton Fire Station, I think there's only 2 or 3 houses that are outside of the 5 miles. With ISO, they're not gonna split hairs. They're not gonna come in there and look at 3 or 4 houses and do something to them if the rest of the city isn't compliant. Or with its coverage of 5 miles or less, they're not gonna pick those 1 or 2 houses.
Mountain View is another one.
Sir.
Mountain View is another one.
Mountain View on 140,
Yeah.
that would be real close from the downtown coming into the back parts of the subdivision.
There's plenty of them.
You're having like Rose Creek up on 140, that area back in there. Puckett Creek will be up on 140 when it gets developed.
Yes.
The 3 subdivisions on Bacon, Park Village and Town Mill and Summerwalk, are they within 5 miles of no fire station?
The counties, I'm not exactly sure. We did not go out there and plot out.
Where would the closest county be to that?
It would either be Clayton or the Airport Road, one of those 2. And it really depends on where you're looking at and the way they travel.
I think it's all a good point there to consider, certainly, absolutely. Anyone else have any questions?
Just real quick, while we're on the subject, I wasn't prepared to speak to it, but we have met with the chief and the CFO, and I want everyone to know that hard cost data will soon be available, if not already, to anyone in the public that asks for it, as to documentations of costs from contractors, from fire truck manufacturers, to justify this $6 million, to explain why it's going to cost $6 million. I've asked them to come up with a fact sheet of why it's in the city's best interest to build these 3 fire stations, and to explain why it's going to cost what it's going to cost, the consequences of not building them, things that people would want to know. You're not going to have to ask for open records and all that stuff. It's going to be totally available. Again, I've worked very hard ever since 3.5 years ago when we voted to borrow more money, and I didn't vote to, that it's important that the citizens, the people that are charged with paying it back, have the voice. If the citizens decide they don't want to borrow any more money and don't want to build any more fire stations at this time, you get to make that choice. We're not going to stuff any more debt down your throat without your permission. And we want to be asked the difficult questions. We want to be put on the hot seat. You ask us why we're asking for this, and we'll give the answers, and you decide. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Anyone else? Okay, and I think that's all we have.
Motion to adjourn.
A motion and second, any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. No.